Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Wednesday edition of the show. Want to say hello to everybody following into the chat, the Pewter people, as we like to call them, as we get this show underway. We will be talking about Bucs starting quarterback Baker Mayfield. We had OTAs yesterday. We reviewed all of it, but we saved the best for last with Baker Mayfield and his comments on a number of topics in his press conference yesterday, from Tristan Wirfs to Chris Godwin to the overall offense. So we'll get into that and much, much more. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me today is a very special guest making his return to the Pewter Report podcast. He did such a great job the first time he was on. We had to have him back. So joining the show today, he's a writer for On3 Sports and Five Goats, also a producer of the JP Peterson Show, which I've been lucky enough to be on from time to time. It is Nick Geddes. Nick, thank you so much for joining the show. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you guys for having me back. As I mentioned the first time, I've been listening to this podcast for a long, long time, so I always appreciate the invitation. And as far as I'm doing, I mean, listen, we're almost there to football season, if you can believe it by now. We're in June. OTAs is just like it gives you a little taste of it, right? And before you know it, we'll be in mandatory OTAs, preseason, regular season, all that stuff. So just like all the pewter people out there, can't wait for it.
Amen. I even felt a little football juice this afternoon because Adam Schefter was tweeting about the schedule for the college football playoffs. Obviously, this year it's the inaugural 12-team playoff. And when he said that there's going to be the first game is Friday night, I believe December 20th or December 21st, right before Christmas. You get that first playoff game and then a triple header on Saturday afternoon. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited for the NFL and everything to come with the Buccaneers. But I'm already thinking about, just get me to Christmas season, or holiday season, I should say, for those games, like that Friday, Saturday, knowing I'm going to be sitting down watching every single second of those playoff games. I'm ready for football. Life is better. The world is better when football is going on.
It makes the world go round. And mentally, I'm there. Mentally, I'm somewhere there, just whatever you do for tailgating, beers in your hand, if you like cocktails at tailgates, things like that, going to the game, sitting here, whatever you do for your football tradition, we all have it. Mentally, I am there, and I can't wait.
If I'm not mistaken, you have a college football podcast, correct?
Yeah, I also, I'm a UCF alum. So I have a UCF, it's called the Charge On Podcast, as part of the Believe Network. So we record once every week, and the episodes come on every Friday.
Awesome. What's the outlook for UCF this year? What can we expect?
I don't want to be a homer, but it's tough not to look at the roster and the things they've done in the portal and recruiting and not think I think they got an outside shot. I'll put it that way, an outside shot to potentially get to a Big 12 title game. I think an outside shot is what I'm putting it at.
All right. I like the optimism. I know Pewter Report's Bailey Adams will enjoy hearing that as well. Let's talk about a different Big 12 quarterback. Now, he was a Big 12 quarterback a while ago and a Heisman Trophy winner. But, of course, I'm talking about Baker Mayfield, the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, Nick, obviously, this whole offseason for the Bucs, yes, it was re-signing Mike Evans. That was super important. Same with Levante David. We've seen even recent deals done with Antoine Winfield Jr. But the whole beginning of the offseason was really just, watching that hourglass go with the sand pouring down. Will they get a deal done? The Buccaneers, of course, I'm talking about. Will they get a deal done with Baker Mayfield before he hits free agency? And will he even stay with the Buccaneers? Ultimately, they got that done. And he's back with the Bucs on a big contract, but then it kind of gets overlooked with the whole Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta thing. But nonetheless, a big payday for Baker Mayfield. What were your thoughts, Nick, about how he performed last season in kind of a make-or-break year for him for his NFL longevity? And, do you think he should have got that contract that the Bucs gave him?
Yeah, I think when you break down his season, he kind of fell somewhere in that, what I would say, 10 to 16 sort of range, I'd like to say, of quarterbacks. I think there's that tier of elite quarterbacks that week in and week out, they give you just top level play. And then you have this large section of quarterbacks that, more often than not, maybe it's good, but they're also going to have some weeks where they leave you scratching your head. And I sort of put Baker Mayfield in that category. With that being said, I think he absolutely did enough to earn the contract. And I think the Bucs, there was no other option anyway. There
Yeah.
was zero, especially when you're picking at 26 and all those things. And in terms of keeping continuity together, um, I don't think there was any other direction for the Buccaneers to go in than to get Baker Mayfield signed. As far as the outlook of that contract and how it's going to age. I mean, my thing with Baker going into this season is okay. Last year he was solid, and that was probably his best season since his rookie season, or I think maybe his third season in the league, right?
Yeah.
So he never really has put two solid seasons, I would say, back to back together in his career at this point. So to me, that's the next step for Baker Mayfield is can he find some consistency from a year, 2 year basis? And listen, he's got 3 years on that contract clearly
Yeah.
to do it. So we know he's going to be there to get the attempt to do it. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for is because even with the way he played last year, which I would probably say, like, is Baker Mayfield going to get a lot better? I don't think so. I think he can get a little bit better maybe than he was last year. But even at the level that he played, it got you to 9 wins. It got you a game away from an NFC title game. And
Yeah.
that having the worst running game in football, clearly. So theoretically, if some of these things pick up around him, you know, we'll see. I think this Bucks team is still in an upward trajectory with him at quarterback.
Yeah, I think Baker is somewhere in between. I guess we'll go historical with the Buccaneers, like somewhere in between Brad Johnson, who was a quarterback of a Super Bowl winning team, but you don't look at that first Bucks championship team and say, "Oh yeah, like they won because of Brad Johnson." But on the flip side, he's obviously not like Patrick Mahomes or some of those other
Right.
guys that have really led his team um, to the promised land. And it's interesting too because the Bucs did make a great run. They got to that second round of the playoffs, one of the last teams remaining in the NFL as the postseason went along, and yet still the Bucs get underappreciated, overlooked, all these different things. Why do you think that is? And do you think that Baker kind of plays into that at all?
You know, I guess the way I would look at it like this. So I'm from Tampa and everything, and I was a Bucks fan my entire life. So, and maybe it's because the Bucks were bad for the most of the time that
Yeah,
I've been a fan. Like even like when the glory days of Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp, I was really young for that. So the Bucks were not very good through all that time. So I've always mentally known, oh, they always count the Bucks out, or they don't think the Bucks exist. So that's kind of what I always had chalked it up to until like Brady came here, obviously, and things changed. And I think that's what happened last year. It all came down to Tom Brady not being there. And
yeah,
it was like that whole effect of, well, they went 8-9 with Tom Brady. So what do you think they're going to do with Baker Mayfield as the quarterback? And as we know, it never is one thing. It never should always come down to the quarterback. That plays a big role, of course, but it never should. But if that's the way that it's going to be and they're going to doubt the Buccaneers, how could you argue that there's a better quarterback and a better leader for the team than Baker Mayfield? The guy that seems to thrive off of that and to live off of that. And like you said when you started the show, his whole thunder got kind of stolen this offseason
yeah,
by Kirk Cousins, who goes to Atlanta. And it's not like Kirk Cousins has like all this drip on him or something. Like he plays a certain way that makes me go, man, I want to watch Kirk Cousins play, right?
yeah.
It's not like that. So it's the new thing. He's the new thing, obviously. So that's
Fresh new
why I think
toy.
you're getting all the pub. And then he has all those toys around him that everybody thinks like, hey, they haven't been used the right way. And now Kirk's going to come in and new coach, all that stuff. It's all fresh. Whereas the Bucks, there's not really many new toys. We know who Mike Evans is. We know who Chris Godwin is. I think some of that maybe plays a role in it. But again, like I said, being doubted, I think that's where the Bucks would like it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in full agreement of. I think part of the reason why the Bucks got overlooked is because the names and the faces that they signed with
Right.
Mike, with Levante, even their quote unquote new free agency signing was a guy that previously played for the Bucks with Jordan Whitehead. So even like the new guy is a familiar face in that sense, and you see the dollar signs and everything with Kirk Cousins. And I guess really my question, not for you specifically, for like the national media, is haven't you learned your lesson? Like, you just did this last year with the Bucs bringing in Baker. And there's even more of a reason to not believe in the Bucs last year because Baker was so unknown in this current system. And, Derek Carr got to, wipe the slate clean and go to New Orleans, and he got the big contract. But then fast forwarding to this year, seeing how it played out last year, now you have Baker with a new offense, or with the new offensive coordinator, but with the same offense, with the guys he was just playing with. I don't know how much better New Orleans is going to be because they only got a year older and, in my opinion, didn't add a crazy amount of, weapons to their offense. And then I'm looking at Kirk Cousins and the Falcons, and yes, they got better as a team because their quarterback play was abysmal. So really, they could have signed 28 other guys. It would have been an upgrade for Atlanta. But here's what I'll ask you, because I've had this conversation with other people. I look at where Kirk Cousins was with the Vikings. He had Justin Jefferson, who just got paid, understandably so. He had some good weapons with Minnesota. Now with Kirk Cousins, post-Achilles injury, another year older, coming to Atlanta, yes, Bijan Robinson is dynamite. He's so much fun to watch. Drake London's pretty good. Kyle Pitt's pretty good. But I think there's an argument that the Vikings team that Kirk Cousins was with was a better situation for Kirk Cousins than what he's got in Atlanta.
I would absolutely agree with that. Now, maybe like if you compare just straight up last year, was Minnesota's run game up to where they probably had wanted it? No. But before that, you had Dalvin Cook in his prime, right?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned it, Justin Jefferson. And in this year's case, he had Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson was there. And we forget before the injury, Hawkinson was playing at as good as anybody in the league at tight end. And so, yeah, a lot of Atlanta, it's always based on projection. It feels like with Atlanta. And it's always, well, what if? Well, what if? What if Bijan Robinson gets this many touches? What if Drake London gets this many targets? What if they start throwing the ball to Kyle Pitts? And the reason why these players get chances and we always just wait for the breakout is because of where they were drafted. All three of those players were drafted in the top 10. And take Bijan out of the equation because he was great last year. The other two players have been probably a little underwhelming. I would think that's fair to say. And I'm not saying that's all their fault, but the whole point of that is that if you're trying to make the case for Atlanta to be a better football team than the Buccaneers, you are doing it based on a what-if scenario when we just saw the Buccaneers last year with almost the same pieces, and now a new OC coming in, do just enough to get into the playoffs. And like I said, we're one of the final 4 teams remaining in the NFC. So, again, the odds projections have the Bucs right now at 7.5 wins, I think. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. I feel like there'd have to be a lot of things to go wrong for the Bucs to win 7 games. But again, I think that they're just okay with that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a trap. I'm a big-time gambler. Fully admit that. Obviously, I have a segment on Peter Reports YouTube.
We've all been there.
Betting the Bucs. Check it out this season. But yeah, I saw the 7.5 right away. I was like, oh my God, like bet the house on the over for the Bucs. But the reason why it's a little bit of a trap is that the payout, it's like minus 150 for the Bucs to go over 7.5 wins, which that's not really great odds. For those that don't gamble, that means if you pay $150, you'd win 100. So you'd win 250 total. So minus 150 like isn't really a great payout. Now, I do think that there is really good value because I know it's plus, I want to say like plus 300 or something like that for the Bucs just to win the division straight up, or the Bucs to make the postseason anyway. That's in the plus as well. So I think that's really, if you're going to bet on the Bucs, that's like the proper value to find it. And yeah, 7.5 betting aside, I think the Bucs are absolutely going to smash that. To your point, if they, unless something like goes terribly wrong, I mean, after they get through that gauntlet of the schedule, that's, the Ravens, the Falcons, or whatever the order is. We might have a picture of it. Yeah, there we go. That lineup of Ravens Monday Night Football, Falcons, Chiefs, and 49ers, if they can weather that storm, go 2-2, or if they jump out to a great start and kind of can afford to lose a couple of those games in the gauntlet, I love their schedule after the bye. I mean, the Giants, the Panthers, the Raiders, who knows what's going to be going on with them? Obviously, Antonio Pierce kind of putting them in a better direction. Really, the only tough games are the Chargers and the Cowboys, because I think a lot of people believe Harbaugh is going to really turn the Chargers around. But that's a great schedule, Nick, coming out of the bye.
Yeah, and everybody said, well, those games are on the road. Like, I've heard that argument, and like, sure, but again, home and away does matter, of course. Like, I'm not going to tell you it doesn't, but
Yeah.
again, do we expect much out of the Giants this year? And again, these are all projections, but do we expect much out of the Giants this year? Do we expect much out of Carolina this year or New Orleans? Like, and even the two games you mentioned, Chargers and Cowboys, I'll concede to you that Cowboys, Sunday night, NBC, all those things, that's a tough game. I will concede that. And we can all LOL at the Cowboys all we want. They still won 12 games for the last 3 years. But again, do I see it like, is it out of the realm of possibility the Bucs can win that game? I don't think so. Do I think the Chargers, even if everything goes right for them, that it's out of the realm of possibility the Bucs could beat them on the road? No, I don't. So yeah, I agree with you. If they can weather that storm going into the bye week, that kind of reminds me of like the year, what was it, 2022? Remember when they had to weather the storm to start the season when they had the Murderers Road and what'd they go 2-2?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they just, they went 2-2 and we went from there. Obviously, didn't get much better, but that was
you
the
talking
whole
about
point.
Brady's last season.
Yeah, Brady. The one we don't want to. In fact,
Right.
shame on me for even bringing it up. My apologies. But yeah, weather that storm and get to the back half of your schedule. I think there should be some wins there for them.
I'm in full agreement. We got a super chat to get to, a little bit off topic, but that's totally fine. You know the rule on this show. If you super chat us, we're happy to get to it. So thanks to David Van Dunn for this $4.99 super chat, who says, I know this is off topic. That's all right. But Matt, how is Italy? I go this month. Any recommendations? I'm excited. Hope y'all are well. Go Bucs. David, thanks for the super chat and appreciate the personal interest in Italy. I had a fantastic time. Beautiful sightseeing. I was on the Amalfi Coast, like that side. So it's kind of more southern Italy. So I was at Amalfi, Sorrento, visited Capri, not Capri, Capri. They're little, they want to make sure you got the pronunciation correct. Positano, and like one other place. But I absolutely loved it. Sounds like you're going to Sorrento based on that comment. I would definitely recommend taking the ferry to go to a couple other towns or doing like a private boat tour or whatever. If you want restaurants, I got some written down. I'm not going to look for them right now because we got to get back to the Buccaneers. But DM me and I'm happy to give you kind of like further, longer explanations about a lot of stuff. But thank you very much for the super chat. And I hope you have a fantastic time in Italy. Nick, where was your favorite vacation that you've ever gone to?
Favorite vacation? I got to tell you, I think I went to New York for the first time.
Awesome. Let's
3
go.
months ago with my wife on our 1-year anniversary trip.
Oh, nice.
And I was one of those people that was like, I'm never going to New York. I'm not doing it. And I was like, you know what? 2024, we're going to try new things. And so we went to New York, and it was honestly fantastic. As long as you stay out of this, like, just stay away from Times Square and go anywhere but there, and probably down all the way on like First Avenue, where everybody's trying to get you to go on their helicopter.
Right.
To go to the statue.
Yeah.
Outside of those areas, I found it fantastic.
That's great, man. I mean, I'm from New York, so obviously I'm biased. But yeah, I mean, Times Square itself, I'm from Long Island, so it's about an hour train ride into the city. Yeah, Times Square itself, it's super, super touristy. So there's some people that do like that. But yeah, if you want to see the rest of the city, there's a lot of great places to go to. Obviously, the pizza's amazing, great food. And yeah, definitely different types of people than here in Florida. A lot more unruly, impatient.
Oh,
but,
I know. My dad's from Long Island. Just
oh,
like
nice.
So,
what part of Long Island?
It was Huntington, I believe.
Huntington. Okay, cool.
Huntington,
That's not. Yeah, that's not crazy far from where I'm from. But anyway, very, very cool. Did not know that. But you learn something new every day. Let's get back to the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. Like I mentioned, Baker spoke after OTAs yesterday. We'll play this video right now. Him talking about building chemistry with this team, further chemistry, I should say, because obviously he was here last season, but also a little bit of a new offense this year with Liam Cohen. We'll talk about that after this video.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, obviously continuing the chemistry that we've had with some of the skill guys from last year, carrying that over. And then just offensively, scheme-wise, getting everybody on the same page. It's really awesome that we have about a year on offense just going through that. So everybody's hearing it. We're all talking about it, learning from good and bad plays. And that's what this time period's about. You can't win or lose ball games right now. You can only just try and get better. So, just trying to get to know the younger guys. But we've got a lot of guys that have promise. And so that's what you really want to see. You want to see them busting. busting their tails, working, and trying to learn it. Because you really want to stress the mental aspect of the game right now. To try and learn as much as you can, to where when it comes to live bullets and during training camp, it's second nature. So, and that's why I like the way Liam's installed the offense as well. Puts a lot on you mentally in the front, and just it is a little mentally taxing, but it's good in the long run when it comes to their rules. Obviously a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, things like that. It makes them think about the rules and have to react on the fly. So for us, like I said, it's a lot of learning that part, because if we're not doing our job, it doesn't matter what the defense is thinking. So it's right there, but it presents different issues for them that they have to conquer.
Baker also spoke about having more responsibility, specifically in this style of offense. This is what he had to say.
Rams, but how much different is it from a quarterbacking standpoint, your responsibilities compared to what you did last year?
There's a lot more responsibility. Line of scrimmage, a lot more double play calls where you're having to get the guys in the right position. But as a quarterback, you want to have that responsibility, accountability. You always want to put your guys in that position to have success. And so now Liam's giving us the opportunity to go through a couple play calls to be able to do that. And so, like I said, more mentally taxing, but just relearning the system and not taking it with the mindset of I've been in it before, but really start from square one.
Yeah, it's so interesting with Baker because every single year in his career, he's had a different offensive coordinator. And that's got to be tough for anybody. Like, you can be Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, some of the best quarterbacks in the league. But if you have to deal with a new coach and a new system almost every single season, that's got to be tough. So Baker, while he does have a new offensive coordinator, it's also a guy that he's worked with before with Liam Cohen back with his time with the Rams. Now, the big thing Cohen's going to bring, one, he's going to ask a lot more of this offense just from a football IQ standpoint. Baker kind of mentioned it, but Liam Cohen also really hammered it home the last time we spoke to him about, like, we're going to go into the huddle with 2 or 3 plays, and we're going to pick the right play that helps with the matchups, where whether it's a math thing of, okay, well, there's more guys on this side, we're going to move our play to the other side or whatever it may be. But how beneficial do you think it is, even though it's a small sample size, the fact that Baker, one, kind of gets to have a little bit more control of this offense than maybe he did a year ago, and two, working with Liam Cohen, who he has previous working experience with before?
Yeah, I'm all for rather him having more control in the offense at the line of scrimmage. I think at this point in his career, now 6-7 years into it, I think he's probably ready for that. And I think, he seems generally excited about it, from what I interpret from when he spoke there, to get more responsibility. And listen, anytime you can have more looks at the line of scrimmage and you can try to throw off defenses and everything, I think your offense has a chance to be that much better. So I'm all for that. The relationship with Liam Cohen, which obviously that made it clear that he was going to re-sign. And I know they were just together for 4 games?
Pretty much, yeah. It was like the last month of the year.
Right. But I've heard Liam talk, he was able to get pretty close to Baker during that stretch and everything. So, and in general, how I feel about, this offense and direction it's going and under Cohen and everything, like, we have to remember the Bucs took strides as an offense last year. I shouldn't even say strides because obviously it was year 1 under Dave Canales. Took strides throughout the season under Dave Canales. But this is the difference. Even when you got to like week 7, week 8, week 9, and I think Dave even may have said this, like, he was still trying to figure out, what are my best plays? What are my best packages? What do my players do well? And play sequencing. I think that was if Dave Canales had a blind spot all year long, I think this honestly took it all the way to the end of the season, was play sequencing. Mm-hmm. And now that you have Liam comes in here and he has more experience than Dave Canales did, he worked with Baker. He obviously was around a football savant like Sean McVay. And obviously the college game is different, but for what it's worth, Kentucky had one of the most explosive offenses in the SEC last year. So he knows offense a lot. And I don't think you're going to get to week 6, week 7, week 8, and the Buccaneers are going to be figuring out still, hey, what are our best plays? What are our best packages? All those things they had to work through a part of the season last year with Dave Canales. I don't think you have to with Liam Cohen. And I think that's a really underrated part of, okay, we lost a little continuity, but I think overall we're still going to be a smarter team. We're going to be a better team because as solid as the offense might have been at times last year, it was still the 23rd ranked offense in the league. there's still a lot of room to grow there.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point where Liam Cohen, yeah, he's only done at the NFL to a certain degree, to a certain level. He has way more experience calling plays, whether it was at Kentucky or with the Rams for a little bit, way more experience than Dave Canales ever did. So there were going to be those natural growing pains with Canales. Nonetheless, that didn't mean that the team was going to be terrible because of it. But yeah, there were times where you kind of thought, where is Mike Evans right now? As great as Mike Evans was last season, I mean, he was tied for the NFL lead in touchdowns and obviously got over 1,000 yards again. There were certain times in games where, like, Mike hadn't seen the ball in an entire quarter or an entire half, or, you know, what's going on with Chris Godwin? I mean, it got to the point last year where Chris Godwin's wife was on Instagram, you know, kind of complaining about the offense.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things that Liam Cohen said is, I have the playbook, and then I have a specific number of just go-to plays, 3rd and 4. How are we getting Mike Evans the ball, or Chris Godwin, or whoever it may be? And his big mantra is, it's players, not the plays. And so it's going to be all about getting Mike Evans the football, Chris Godwin, and making that run game better too.
I will put everything on it, and I don't even know if he's even going to be on the roster to begin with, but the first pass thrown of the season will not be going to Keith. Okay.
How about the second pass of the season? Isn't that crazy? The first, not just the first one, the first 2 passes of the whole season went to Keith.
I think, see, honestly, I don't even remember the second one. I think the first one had already, like, I'd gone, what is this season already? That I just completely had, like, tuned out for a little bit. I don't even remember the second one. I remember the first one and how we were all just like, oh, Keith, okay. But yeah, I'll put money on it that the first pass, though, is not going to Keith or whoever. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I don't. At this point, I don't even know if Keith is going to make this team.
Right.
I mean, with all due respect to Keith, we're looking at an offense now with Liam Cohen that's going to be mostly, and there'll be different formations, but their base package will be 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end. So that obviously already eliminates the 2 tight end system that the Bucs did a lot more with Dave Canales. We'll see how Payne Durham looks, but, you know, Keith is, at this point, he's more of a fullback than he is a tight end. So if you're a fullback on a team that was in dead last in rushing over the last 2 seasons, that's probably not good for you. So you got to prove it somewhere else. And, well, he's not exactly a receiver. He did have a touchdown last season, but it was his only catch of the whole year. So might be a little dicey for Keith, and he's been injured. He hasn't been at OTAs. He's been there physically, but he's not practicing. So that's something for him to worry about a little bit. When it comes to energy drinks, there is nothing to worry about because, you know, the best flavor, the best brand around, of course, is Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. We always keep the vibes high on the show. The vibes are even higher with Nick making a guest appearance on this episode as well. Celsius has great vibe flavors, whether it's the Galaxy, Astro, Cosmic, Tropical. I love the Arctic vibe. That's my personal favorite. So there's tons of great flavors of Celsius. No sugar. It's a great replacement for coffee in the morning if you want to go that route to help start your day. I know it's helped me a lot, especially going to the Bucs facility. If you need to know where to get a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address. It'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, health and fitness store, 7-Eleven, or it might just be your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want to get more, you want to buy them in bulk, you can buy them in bulk. Head on over to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save. Get that variety pack because there's so many great flavors of Celsius. You heard me rattle them off, and variety is the spice of life. You can have that variety pack sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. I want to talk about Chris Godwin in a moment, but we did get a couple of super chats. So let's get to these super chats, starting with Meets McGee. Thank you, Meets McGee, for this $10 super chat, who says, there's been 8 games the past 2 seasons, 4 per season, they were favorites in. Losing games from the entire team, giving a D. What type of
Devin White?
Yeah, Devin White. Okay, giving Devin White type efforts. Yeah, thank you. That's why you're on the show today. What 4 games should we look out for? So what games do we think the Bucs will be favorites that could be a situation where they don't pull through? Glad we got the schedule graphic. 1 second. Okay. All right. Off the bat, I mean, Washington with the rookie quarterback, it's tough to say like how the Commanders are going to look. And just given the Bucs history with Todd Bowles against rookie quarterbacks, I mean, Brock Purdy lit up the Bucs, and then Daniel Jones got his first career win against the Bucs. It's kind of crazy, Nick, that of the first 3 weeks, the Bucs play 2 rookie quarterbacks, assuming that Bo Nix starts for the Denver Broncos.
All right, I was gonna say Washington and Denver are like the two. Like I'm tempted to say one of those is gonna be a potential trap game, just because I just don't know obviously what we're gonna get out of those quarterbacks. And like you said,
Right.
we have an inconsistent history with Todd Bowles' defenses against rookie QBs. Although I think it's been a little better of late. Take the Purdy game out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. So as far as just where they're going to be favorites, Washington for sure, Denver for sure. Definitely, probably not Philly. I think that one could be a money line game. Definitely not Atlanta. I don't know about New Orleans for the home game. They will be, but I don't know about the road game. Baltimore, no. Atlanta, no. Kansas City, San Fran, no. Giants, they will be a favorite. Panthers, they will. I would say Vegas could be one where the Bucs would be favored, and mistakes may ensue.
Hey, I mean, if Gardner Minshew's the quarterback, we saw what he did last year against
Minshew Mania,
the Todd Bowles defense. So that's probably my biggest one if I had to pick one out.
Yeah, I would say Washington or Vegas probably, I think, have the scenario for something like that to happen, especially like if you're playing a good team, and the Bucs are a solid team. They obviously went as far as they did in the postseason. You want to play a good team earlier in the season because that's when they're not like in full gear, have their full rhythm just yet. So like if you're Washington, new rookie quarterback, I just have in my head like when RG3 made his debut for Washington against New Orleans and he threw a touchdown pass, I think on like the first play of the game or something like that. I don't know why I believe that will happen with Washington against the Bucs this time around, but I don't know, just something that I thought of. Shout out to Mark Fisher for this $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, isn't playing Barton at guard a more sure of a bet? Center's tough for a rookie, and it wasn't his main position. Shotgun and line calls. Marpet struggled. That is true. Ali Marpet did struggle the year he did play center. Now, Graham Barton did play center before at Duke. He kind of moved around. He played tackle, he played guard, he played center as well. He said he's been taking snaps pretty much since the college football season was done in preparation for this. It's not a bad idea or question, but I just think like the Bucs believe that they can find a better replacement at guard with some of the guys they signed this year with Suo, Peta, and Ben Bredeson than trying to just have at it again with Robert Hainsey. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think Robert Hainsey's time as a starter, at least on this team, has come and gone. I think there's too much going against it. He's just not physical enough. Listen, replacing Ryan Jensen is a task that I would want no part of.
Yeah.
So, but he's just not even close. So I'd rather restart that position. I think you can maybe hide a deficiency at left guard a little bit, maybe more than I think, because I think center is a really important position. I
agree.
And I don't want to do to Barton what they did to Marpet, where they made it a little difficult, where he was moving from did he play all three? Like in like a 3-year span, maybe, or something like that. I could have swore he went like left, center, right, and he was just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I think he might have. This is like before I was covering the Bucs, so
right. I'm pretty sure if somebody in the comments remembers that time frame, I believe he might have been right, center, and then he obviously ended up at left.
Yeah.
But so I'd rather keep Graham. If they want Graham to play center, then have him just play center. Focus on that. He only played it his freshman year, so he doesn't have any reps at it. I'd rather just keep him at center.
Right, because I think you also have to think, like, if Cody Mauch takes a big-time step, People are comparing Graham Barton to Ali Marpet, and not because of the struggles, because of all the great things that Ali Marpet brought to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think if you lock down center, I mean, there's something about having a great center that can, I think, elevate your offensive line a little bit more than, say, a guard that does a great thing. I mean,
Right.
I think of, obviously, Brian Jensen's a great example, or Jason Kelsey with the Eagles. Having that gritty, in-your-face type of, offensive
Nasty.
lineman at center.
I want the nasty guy at center.
Right, and Barton can move around too. He's way more mobile. And I'm not trying to knock Robert Hainsey. I just think he is better. I think he's a top backup center overall, and he can win a couple of games. But I wouldn't want him starting all 17 again. So it's certainly something to consider. If anything, I would put Hainsey in the mix at guard with some of the other guys instead of just saying let him.
Yeah, because it's not like Ben Bredesen and Sewell. I mean, it's not like these guys. I mean, listen, they were out there for a reason. They're kind of journeymen at this point. Kind of have Matt Filer vibes, maybe a little bit to him. We know how that turned out. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, get your 5 best on the line.
Fully agree there. Let's talk a little bit about Chris Godwin. We mentioned Mike Evans, that chemistry. It's a big year for Chris Godwin. It's a contract season for him. He's moving back into the slot where he had a little bit more success. What are your thoughts about Godwin heading into this year? Yes, he's a little bit older, but he's further removed from that injury. What are your expectations for him?
Yeah, like you said, further removed from the injury, and him going back to the slot does excite me. I know that they pretty much took him out of there because of the injuries, but when I think of Chris Godwin and I think of him together with Mike Evans, there was a time where we would say that's the best wide receiver duo in football.
Yeah.
And you see all these lists comes out and everything. I know everybody has a list. But you never see those two guys on those lists anymore of the top wide receiver duos in football. And even though they both continue to get, 1,000 yards every year, I would kind of agree with that, where they're not at the peak. They haven't been at the peak of their powers like maybe they were in, just throw 2019 out there when the Bucs were throwing it all over the yard and it was always going to Mike and always going to Chris. Maybe it's not going to get to that level because I don't know, because obviously that was a 23, 24-year-old Chris Godwin pre-injury. But in terms of just getting him involved more and maybe getting him hey, let's see if we can get him 10 to 12 targets, most games, which I found so hard to do. It felt like last year when he wasn't playing in the slot. And since he's been playing outside, it's been almost like a struggle and like a fight. And then there's games where they try to okay, we haven't thrown to Chris a lot. Now we're going to force it into him. I feel like there was one game last year where he got a bunch of targets because there was this emphasis, hey, we're going to throw Chris the ball. And it's they were just forcing it then. There wasn't a natural flow to it. And Chris Godwin only having 2 touchdowns last year. I mean, listen, I think he's more effective in the red zone than that. I think there's definitely ways to get him the ball more and some creative packages. And if I know Liam Cohen the way that I've heard him talk about it, I think he probably already has those packages and plays ready to go for Chris Godwin. And like you said, it's about the players, not the plays. No, there will be no fooling around with some of the lesser receivers on this team to get a little creative. Just give it to your best players and get Chris the ball, because this offense can really hum if you treat Mike and Chris like the players they are.
Yeah, there were many times back in the Super Bowl winning year and the season after, even with Antonio Brown there, I still felt like this offense, its locomotive was Chris Godwin. He's clearly a better player when he has the ball in space, and that speaks to how good he is with the yards after the catch, which I think there's way more opportunity for that in the slot, catching passes over the middle versus, hey, you're on the sideline, make the catch and just step out of bounds because you're a yard away from that in that area. There's been so many different iterations of Godwin over the past 2 or 3 seasons, because to your point of just kind of forcing him the ball, I really felt that was the case in Brady's last year in 2022. And yes, I get it. You wanted to kind of bubble wrap Chris Godwin, but still have him play because he was coming off of the ACL injury. And Godwin still got 1,000 yards. I think he broke the Bucs single season receptions record because half the passes to him would just be screens to him. And screens are fine if they're effective, but it would be let's get Chris the ball. We're not going to have any blockers around except for maybe one wide receiver when you'd rather have a running back or an offensive lineman pulling and go and block. And hey, Chris, like, go do the rest. Yes, it's good for like stats and padding them, but I don't think it was effective to the Buccaneers offense. And I think that's why you saw some struggles. And then, last year outside, I don't hate the idea of moving him and seeing what he can do there, but you get to a point where you have to make adjustments and say, all right, maybe this isn't working out the way that we planned for it. And it's kind of what we talked about before with Canales, where, okay, the run game isn't working. We're down 17. Maybe we should start throwing it a little bit more, but we got to stick and establish the run. That kind of goes into where Canales maybe didn't make all the adjustments that Liam Cohen would probably be better suited to do.
Right. And I think the obvious comparison people want to say about how he's going to be in this offense is you look at what Cooper Kupp was to, the Rams, right? Because he operates out of the slot. And for a time there, I mean, the two consensus best slot receivers in football were Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin. So, like, I think it's a fair compare. I'm not saying Chris Godwin is catching 130 and 140 passes. That's not happening.
Yeah.
But my point with saying it is I think Liam has been around some minds and was there and knows what it looks like to get a player the caliber of Chris Godwin involved. And so that's why I got a lot of confidence in it. Because like you said, even though he's continued to put up 1,000 yards, I think 3 years in a row, I think if you watch the games, it's almost as ineffective 1,000 yards could look.
Right. It's not an inspiring 1,000.
It's not an inspiring 1,000 yards where I went, it's almost like, wow, that was really tough to get there. And I look at it, I'm like, where were the splash plays? Where were the big plays where I went, wow, he really helped the Bucs win? That's not a knock against Chris Godwin. That's not what I'm doing here. I just think that was the reality of maybe the last 2 years of Chris Godwin, is it was a little bit ineffective despite the numbers that were there.
Yeah, I think that's all very, very fair. I mean, it's not going to be the Chris Godwin of, 2019 where he tore the roof off of the place, or even 2020 when he was still effective, given all the talent they had with AB, Mike, and Gronk still there. But still, everybody was able to eat one way or another. So hopefully they can find some semblance of that old Chris Godwin and have him be more effective this year. Got another super chat. Thanks to Paul Bowen for this $4.99 super chat, who says, are the Bucs still in the market for a left guard? Maybe someone like Mark Lewinsky. I don't think at the moment they're looking at a guard. I mean, it's tough to go through OTAs and be like, man, we need a new offensive guard already, when they kind of address that with Ben Bredeson and Sua Opeta. Now, what I will say is once training camp gets here, or right before it, when there's sometimes cuts of bigger players, I think the most famous one in recent years was when Leonard Fournette got released by the Jaguars, and then the Bucs were able to scoop him. If a big name like that becomes available, maybe they would consider it. But they still got to sign Graham Barton. They got to make sure they have money for the regular season when they inevitably have to sign people. I wouldn't say they're actively shopping, but they're always looking, but not actively shopping, if that makes sense. Let's get to Baker Mayfield talking about Chris Godwin, how it'll elevate not just Godwin's game, but of course the whole offense. Baker, what do you think about Chris Godwin moving back into the slot and how that will elevate not just his game, but the whole offense?
Obviously, Chris has had a ton of success in the slot. This offense is one, though, that we're going to move everybody around, but this one really gives Chris a chance to, the stuff that he's really, really good at, he's going to be doing a lot of. So he's more comfortable in it. You can just tell by language-wise, talking to him about it. He loves it so far. And, right now we're just going through it together, but it's good to see him back where he's best.
And if you want to bet on all the yards Chris Godwin's going to get this year, I know my favorite bet that I hit last season was over under 875 receiving yards for Mike Evans. I clearly and obviously took the over on that one. That was one of the easiest bets I ever made. But if you're going to bet on the Bucs this year, or really any sport, best place to go and do it is over at mybookie.ag. Use the promo code PEWTER, that's PEWTER, and get free money in your account when you sign up on the app. Free money, even if you learn from Plant City Math, you know that is a heck of a deal. So, there's the NBA Final starts tomorrow, the Stanley Cup Final, which I'm in full agreement with you, Nick. Those hats that they put out for the Stanley Cup Final are absolutely disgusting and idiotic, but you can bet on it. The Stanley Cup Finals. You got Conor McGregor fighting at the end of June, allegedly. Who knows if that gets grabbed? But tons of great things to bet on. And then before you know it, football season will be here. Check out their online casino as well. It's not always easy to get out to the casino, but you can enjoy it from the comfort of your couch in your own home over at mybookie.ag with the online casino. So use that promo code PEWTER, PEWTER, at mybookie.ag. Yeah, those hats were just downright awful.
Well, I mean, my expectations are never, as high as they should be when it's, a certain company releasing these things. But
I see. One last thing about the wide receivers. We talked about Evans. We talked about Godwin. Yes, there is some worry about, is this Chris Godwin's last year? But if it is his last year, it's because this next guy looked pretty good in red and pewter, and that's Jalen McMillan, who obviously the Bucs drafted this year, played at Washington. What are your thoughts about him? Did you like the pick? Were you against it? Your thoughts on Jalen McMillan and what he could do for the offense?
Yeah, I mean, because we already had known that Chris was going back into the slot, I thought they were going to go with if they were going to go receiver there at that pick, I thought it was going to be somebody who maybe is more of a primary outside guy.
Yeah.
So I found it interesting, and because then I, dived into McMillan after. He only had 43 snaps out wide over his last 2 seasons at Washington. Now, part of that maybe is because he played with Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk, and somebody's got to play the slot. So maybe that was McMillan's role, but also I think he could probably do both. I'm just curious to see how that fit, certainly goes. And I think that might have been just a case of, okay, maybe he hasn't played out wide a lot and he's mostly a slot guy and we're putting Chris there, but he's our guy. And I'm okay with that. If Jason had him at a certain spot on his board and he felt that maybe he was getting a steal there at 91, then sure, go right ahead, take him. That's fine. As in terms of how he's getting acclimated so far, I mean, we're only going off of what we see,
right.
in borderline underwear football and stuff like that. But just based on the way Baker talked about him, I don't think Baker had to go in there and hype him up and everything, but he already did and everything. And so I have to take it as pretty genuine, I think. And it seems like from the rookie mini camp, from everything that I was hearing, that the ball was just sort of finding Jalen McMillan, and he's not going to drop the football as much. That's something that if you compare him to Trey Palmer, for example, who I think he's probably going to step in and take most of what Trey did last year from a snap standpoint, is probably going to go to McMillan this year, if I had to guess. Trey had a little bit of a drop problem. You probably won't get that out of McMillan, so that's a plus. So yeah, I think for all the reasons I just said, I think it was a solid pick, and Lord knows they could use a third mouth here outside of Godwin. I mean, it's got to go through Godwin and Evans clearly, but they do need a third guy.
This is the first wide receiver they've taken this early in the draft, in the 3rd round, since they drafted Chris Godwin. But this is what Baker Mayfield had to say about McMillan and also running back Bucky Irving.
Jalen's got such a natural feel as a receiver. He's extremely smooth. He's one of those guys that doesn't look like he's really covering a lot of ground because it looks effortless, but he really is. He's a guy that can run every route you have in your route tree, and so a really strong hand at the point of attack. He always attacks the ball when it's in the air, which is great to see for a young guy. Just have that natural tendency. And then Bucky, obviously it's a little hard in the run game stuff right now with no pads on, but one thing I'll say about him, obviously he's got good hands, but when he decides to cut it upfield and get north and south, he goes. He decides and he hits it. So that's good to see.
Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I've done this before with Jalen Darden, where Darden looked really good right now in OTAs. And I'm like, wow, the Bucs have found their new secret weapon, and then it just didn't really translate to, game days and stuff like that. But McMillan, it's not just the ball is finding him; it's Baker Mayfield is the one getting him the ball. Now, rookie minicamp, obviously Baker wasn't there for that, but since McMillan has been working with Baker, they're building a little bit of something. But the big play that stood out to me was just a straight go route down the field, and Bryce Hall was covering McMillan on the play. We're not talking about Keenan Isaac or an undrafted free agent that they just brought in. We're talking about a guy that's going to be competing with Zion McCollum for the starting cornerback role. And You know, he got a couple steps ahead of Bryce Hall, jumped up. I wouldn't say he mossed him or Antoine Winfield Jr.'d him like when Winfield did that to Michael Pittman against the Colts a couple seasons ago. But it was like a nice athletic play. Bam, got up over him, climbed the ladder, if you will, and made a nice play. And with the fact that it is a 3 wide receiver set, 11 personnel, I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but I'm very excited. Even Todd Bowles said Jalen McMillan is the guy that I'm most looking forward to when the pants come on. So if you got Bowles saying that, a defensive guy who doesn't really talk about the offense unless asked about it, for him to go out and say that, I think it speaks pretty highly of how the Bucs feel about Jalen McMillan. Another player that the Bucs, we know how they feel about this player because they want him to be a Buccaneer for a very, very, very long time, is Tristan Wirfs. We have not seen Tristan Wirfs at OTAs because he's looking to get that new contract extension, and OTAs are optional, but he doesn't want to, place any risk on getting hurt right now while there's extensions. This is what Baker Mayfield had to say about Tristan Wirfs not being here. Cracks a little bit of a joke at the end.
Our situations are different because he is, playing under the 5th-year option. So there's a difference there where it was free agency with mine. But it's, when it comes down to Tristan, everybody knows he's a team guy. At a certain point, does he deserve to be paid? Absolutely. The guy's a stud. And so he took the transition from right to left with ease, did it better than I think he thought he was going to. But yeah, you just trust in that process. And I know he's probably more eager to get back here and get the deal done than anybody else, but it gives other guys a great opportunity to come in and get reps as well. So to have that communication, and Tristan's still around. We're not holding out on the friendship, even though he's holding out on us.
We're not holding out on the friendship, even though he's holding out on us. And that video cut off, but Baker's like smirking so hard because he's not trying to laugh. Nick, just want to get your thoughts about the level of concern that the Bucs can't get this deal done in time before the start of the regular season.
Not even on my radar, man. Not even the slightest concern. And I think every Buccaneer fan should operate that way. And to be fair, I don't see anybody freaking out about this, but in case you are, that he's not at OTAs and this and that, I want you guys to go back to, I'm going to bring up that 2022 season because I have to now. I want you to go back to the first day of training camp there, and you let me know the big story coming out of that one, and then come talk to me. There's no reason for Tristan Wirfs to be out here if he doesn't feel like he should because of the contract. And Tristan Wirfs has earned the right to not have to go out there. Even if you compared the situation because he went through it last year with Devin White. Listen, Devin White had already requested trades and things like that, and we didn't even know if he wanted to be in Tampa Bay. There was those questions. So when he doesn't show up to OTAs and things like that, yes, it becomes a big media story. I think there was all the social media stuff going on as well. You don't see Tristan doing any of that whatsoever. And he's going to be a Buccaneer for the foreseeable future, maybe for life. He is outside of Mike Evans, the most important draft pick that Jason Licht has ever had. Yeah. And I'd venture to say, I don't know, obviously negotiations, but maybe they were a little closer before the Penei Sewell signing. I don't know. Maybe that's fair to say.
Yeah. I don't
just gone back to the table. To me, that's all I'm looking at it. It will get done. It will get done eventually.
Yeah. I don't think the Bucs loved when they saw the Sewell contract, because then they were like, all right, well, now we have to add this up. But having the Bucs front off, to anybody that's worried about the whole Tristan Wirfs thing, and to your point, there are not many complaining, but having the Bucs front office earned the benefit of the doubt of they got the Baker deal done. They got the Mike deal done. They've gotten the Winfield extension done. Wirfs last year, when the season was done, didn't even really know what his contract was. Now, obviously, now he's listening to his agent and things like that. And he's still going to report to minicamp next week. So I'm with you. It's not even a thought. It's, everybody can ease their minds and kind of sail away as you just wait for the beginning of the season. Maybe sail away kind of like you would on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cruise that's coming up in March.
We're on the Bucs Cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs Cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa!
on the Bucs Cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs Cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr.
Arr.
That's right. Join the fun of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise coming up March 7th through the 10th of 2025. It's the third annual Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise on the beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. It's a 3-night cruise that begins in Fort Lauderdale and visits the Key West and Bimini in the Bahamas. Last year's cruise had Yaya Diaby, Rashad White, Greg Gaines, Luke Gedeke, Cade Otton, Jamel Dean, Super Bowl 37 MVP Dexter Jackson, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, Gene Deckerhoff, and many others. Maybe Tristan Wirfs will be on it this year. Even more players are expected next year, as well as special guest appearance by Derek Brooks. There's going to be photo and autograph opportunities with the players, a Raise the Flag sail-away party. Christian Izzy was on that too, now that I think of it. VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, a water volleyball challenge. That's always fun. Bucs trivia contests, fun games, and more. Reserve your cabin now on the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips, are all included with a $200 deposit per person. It's refundable all until August 16th. So visit TampaBayBucsCruise.com. That's TampaBayBucsCruise.com, or give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. One more time, that is 1-800-975-7112. All right, as we wrap up the show, Nick, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. One last time, let everybody know where they can follow you, check out all your work, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, you can follow my work at on3.com. And then I'm on the pro side there, which it's called 5 Goats. So right now doing a lot of NFL work, obviously, and even NASCAR stuff. Big into NASCAR there on our site. So that's where my work is for writing. And then obviously I produce the JP Peterson Show on Mondays and Thursdays, which is all Tampa Bay sports, Bucks, Lightning, Rays. And then for all you UCF lovers out there, the UCF Charge On podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that great stuff on the Believe Network.
Awesome. And your Twitter is right there below as well. So if people want to follow you there. Yeah, like I said, you've been a fantastic guest. You were on before. We all said, like, next time we need a guest, we got to hit up Nick again. So we'll definitely have you on again for sure. So that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. Just a reminder for everybody, big time show tomorrow, as we will be joined by Bucs Assistant General Manager Mike Greenberg. He doesn't do a ton of podcasts. I know he went on Adam Schefter a little while ago, but outside of that, doesn't do a lot. So we're very excited to have Mr. Greenberg on the show. Another great man from Long Island. So should be fun chatting with him. Obviously, he's the cap guru of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and can give great insight to all these deals that have been getting done, and probably give us an update on Tristan Wirfs as well. Also, if you're not already doing so, after you follow Nick, make sure you follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. So if you like the podcast, if you like the Pewter Pulses that Scott does, the reaction videos I do, and all the different clips that we have from practice and at the facility, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Nick Geddes, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.